morning, right? They sit you down, look you in the eye, and just hand you this ultimatum.
Oh, this is such a wild scenario to even think about.
Right, because they tell you flat out that you are required to spend like $250,000 on artificial intelligence this year. And if you don't do it, you're fired.
Yeah, just immediately terminate it.
Exactly. I mean, it sounds completely absurd, right? But the crazy thing is, as of last month, so March 2026, that exact scenario basically became the new baseline for what it means to be a valuable knowledge
It
worker.
really did.
The whole fundamental equation of just getting paid for your human input, it's been completely dismantled.
It is a profound shock to the system, honestly. I mean, we spent the last few decades operating on this very simple, almost unquestioned premise.
Right. You go to school, you get a degree.
Exactly. You bring your education, your experience, your, raw brain power to a company, and you trade that input for a salary. And that era is, well, it's functionally over.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking for you today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a stack of sources today, mostly anchored by this massive new report called The Token Economy, Navigating the Era of the AI Builder.
It's a great report. Very eye-opening.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out, what a token economy actually is in the real world, why major tech CEOs are suddenly obsessing over your token consumption as a core productivity metric, and most importantly, how this fundamentally alters the trajectory of your entire career.
Yeah, and to really understand the sheer scale of this shift, we have to look at the math behind the modern workforce. Because the report highlights a shift that is moving, honestly, it's moving faster than anything we saw during the dawn of the internet or even the mobile revolution.
Okay, wait, speaking of scale, there is this one statistic in these sources from Nvidia that I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I read it.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Right. So they recently laid out their workforce planning, and they intend to grow to 75,000 human employees, which, sounds like a standard tech giant number.
Sure, yeah, very typical.
But they plan to have those 75,000 humans working alongside 7.5 million AI agents.
It's staggering.
I mean, that is a ratio of 100 digital workers for every single human being on the payroll. 1 to 100.
That 1 to 100 ratio is, it's the absolute perfect entry point into understanding the core thesis here. Because if you have 100 digital workers reporting to you, your job is no longer to do the work.
Right, you physically can't.
Exactly. Your job is to manage the computation. Like I said, for 30 years, knowledge work was just human input. But today, tokens are a mandatory co-input.
Okay, let's pause right there and just define that, because token is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot right now. If you're listening to this and you're, not a software engineer, what is a token in reality?
So think of a token as a single syllable of thought for an AI.
A syllable of thought. I like that.
It helps visualize it. Every single time an AI reads a word you type or generates a line of code or analyzes a cell in a spreadsheet, it consumes a token.
Okay.
Tokens are basically the raw computational electricity that power artificial reasoning. And it takes massive server farms and incredible amounts of energy to process them.
So they aren't free.
Not at all. They are not just IT infrastructure running quietly in the background. They represent a very real, very tangible financial cost of human productivity today.
So it's the literal cost of artificial thought, which brings me back to the Nvidia CEO, Jensen Huang. Because if I'm supposed to be spending all this computational electricity, I really want to know who is measuring it.
Oh, they're absolutely measuring it.
Yeah, so on March 20th of this year at the GTC conference, Huang laid out this thought experiment that is frankly terrifying if you aren't prepared for it. He said, let's say you hire a software engineer and you pay them $500,000 a year.
A very high-end engineering salary.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the year, he is going to review that engineer's performance. And the primary question isn't about their code quality first, it's how much did you spend in tokens?
Yes.
He explicitly stated that if that highly paid engineer did not consume at least $250,000 worth of tokens, he would be deeply alarmed.
That is the exact mechanism of the token economy in action right there.
Yeah.
But let's look at the actual mechanics of that, because the immediate reaction most people have when they hear that is, how on earth do I spend $250,000 on AI? My premium ChatGPT subscription is like $20 a month.
Exactly. That was my first thought. I was like, I couldn't spend $250,000 on AI if I sat at my laptop typing prompts 24 hours a day for a year.
And you couldn't, because human typing is just way too slow. Spending $250,000 in tokens means you are writing scripts that autonomously call on AI models thousands of times a minute.
Wow.
It means you are orchestrating fleets of agents that scrape data, run predictive simulations, write software, test that software, find the bugs, and then rewrite the software overnight while you are asleep.
So you're not typing, you're conducting.
Exactly. Huang's whole point is that if you are only using your own brain and your own typing speed, you are mathematically capped.
You know, the text mentions Huang comparing this to an engineer using modern CAD software versus one using paper and pencil.
Yes, the classic tool analogy.
Right. But honestly, given that 1 to 100 ratio we talked about, the paper and pencil metaphor feels, I don't know, a bit too small.
How so?
It's more like, okay, imagine an employer buys you a massive state-of-the-art commercial combine harvester for a farm, right? They look out the window and you're out in the field trying to harvest wheat with a hand scythe.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You aren't just being inefficient, you are actively refusing to use the capital equipment they purchase to amplify your capabilities.
That's a great way to look at it. The tractor metaphor definitely works for the machinery aspect, but I would actually push it even further into the realm of management.
Okay, let's hear it.
It is less like getting a faster tractor and more like suddenly being made the director of a department with 100 brilliant but incredibly literal-minded interns.
Oh, that sounds exhausting.
It is, because if you don't know how to delegate, if you don't know how to perfectly articulate the tasks and manage the workflow, those 100 interns just sit there doing absolutely nothing.
Right, yeah.
And your boss, the person paying the salaries of those digital interns, is going to hold you accountable for that wasted potential.
That makes total sense. You are being judged on the output of the team you manage, even if the team is entirely digital.
Exactly. Which means token allocation is becoming a new form of compensation. If Nvidia is essentially paying engineers with a token budget worth half their base salary, the expectation is that you use it.
Right.
Structurally, a high-paid worker who isn't consuming their token budget is radically underperforming.
Okay, but let me push back a little here. Nvidia is a hardware company, right? They're building the chips that make this whole thing possible.
Sure.
If I'm listening to this deep dive, I'm probably wondering, does this actually apply to me? Like, is this just an aspirational philosophy for the people building the AI? Or are other giant organizations actually restructuring their teams to enforce this token consumption right now?
Oh, it is happening on the ground across the board right now. The clearest proof in the source material is this leaked internal memo from Meta.
Right, for March 2026.
Yes, it's regarding the restructuring of their Reality Labs division. Meta basically took a team of 1,000 employees and entirely deleted the old organizational chart, just wiped it out.
Wait, so they just threw away the whole hierarchy?
Completely. They restructured the 1,000 people into what they formerly designated as AI native pods.
Right, and they introduced these completely new job classifications. The foundational role is now called the AI builder, which these are the individual contributors actively deploying AI agents. And then above them, you have the AI pod lead managing groups of builders. And at the very top, the AI org lead, who manages the entire structure using AI systems to conduct continuous performance reviews.
Notice the naming convention there. The word AI is literally the prefix for every single human role.
Yeah, that's wild.
They have completely stopped treating AI as a software tool you can choose to open or close, and they have made AI fluency the structural foundation of the company itself.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though, because I've been around the corporate world long enough to see buzzwords come and go.
Oh, we all have.
Right. So when I hear AI native pods or AI builder, a part of me just thinks, okay, this is just a rebranding exercise. Is it possible Meta is just trying to look highly innovative for their quarterly earnings call? Like, will a Midwest logistics company or a regional bank really operate this way?
It is a totally for skepticism, but the internal documents show this is far beyond a branding exercise, and the reason is the mandatory usage targets.
Ah.
Meta established hard quotas. According to the memo, 65% of their engineers are now mandated to use AI for at least 75% of their committed code.
Wait, I need to stop you there. 65% of engineers must use AI for 75% of their work.
Yes. And furthermore, within their scalable machine learning organization, 50 to 80% of all code must be AI assisted.
But how do you even measure that? Does a manager sit there and audit your code line by line to see if a human or bot wrote it?
No, The AI platforms themselves track the token consumption and generation. It is entirely transparent to management. And this ties directly back to what we were saying about performance reviews.
Okay, so the data is just there.
Exactly. So if you are a brilliant coder at Meta and you decide you prefer writing everything manually from scratch because you enjoy the craft of it, you will fail your performance review. You are structurally underperforming relative to the quota.
Wow, so it's not a suggestion. You hit the token consumption target or you are out.
Precisely. And to address your point about the Midwest Logistics Company, this is absolutely not isolated to Silicon Valley. Look at the broader labor market data from January to March of 2026.
The layoff numbers were brutal.
They were. Amazon cut 16,000 corporate roles while simultaneously investing billions in automation. Dell reduced its total headcount by 10%, specifically to reallocate that budget to AI server expansion.
Right.
But most tellingly, a survey of corporate executives showed that 44% of companies cited AI automation as the primary driver of their layoffs this year. The transition is ubiquitous. Survival in this wave depends entirely on token fluency.
If companies are actively cutting traditional roles while at the exact same time elevating and mandating these new AI builder roles, we aren't just looking at a trend, we are looking at a permanent fracture in the labor market.
Absolutely. And the sources actually outline a formal framework for this. It's called the EON AI Fluency Theory.
EON AI Fluency Theory.
Yeah, right. It posits that the workforce is permanently dividing into two distinct, non-overlapping tiers. Tier 1 is the AI builders. These are the workers who possess the fluency to orchestrate tokens, manage digital fleets, and multiply their value tenfold.
And tier 2?
Tier 2 is simply everyone else. The traditional manual knowledge workers whose roles are actively being automated by the tokens the builders are managing.
And what really struck me in the research is that the gap between these two tiers is not static. It's not like the transition from typewriters to computers where eventually everyone just learned to type on a keyboard and the gap closed.
No, it behaves very differently.
There's a report in here from Anthropic that measured what they call the compounding gap. They analyzed over 1 million real-world AI interactions, and they found that experienced AI users have a 10% higher success rate in getting the AI to complete a complex task compared to newcomers.
Now, that 10% figure might sound relatively small initially, but the mechanism behind it is ruthless. We really need to look at what happens to that 10% over the course of a fiscal year.
I can actually relate to this personally, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I tried to use an AI to write a complex macro for this massive spreadsheet I was working on. I spent like 3 hours arguing with the bot, getting stuck in a loop of errors, and eventually I just gave up and did it manually.
Right, because you lacked the fluency to guide it.
Exactly, I lack the fluency. But if an AI builder is 10% more successful at orchestrating that prompt, they don't spend 3 hours arguing with a bot. They get the macro in 10 minutes.
And what do they do with those 2 hours and 50 minutes they just saved?
They do more work.
Exactly. They use that time to build an even more complex autonomous workflow. They automate their email triage, or they build a predictive model for their next project.
It's compound interest.
Yes.
The fluency gap isn't like a typing speed difference where I type 60 words a minute and you type 80.
Yeah.
Every single week that an AI builder successfully orchestrates their tokens, their output compounds.
It accelerates.
Right. They build systems that do their work for them, while the non-fluent worker is still manually swinging the hand scythe. The non-fluent worker falls exponentially further behind every single day.
And the labor market understands this compounding value perfectly. And it is aggressively pricing it in.
Oh, the numbers here are insane.
The financial data from March 2026 is staggering. If you have just one verified AI skill on your resume, it commands a 28% salary premium on average.
28%.
Yes. And if you possess two AI skills, that jumps to a 43% salary premium.
Okay, let me just wrap my head around that for a second. A 43% bump just for knowing how to talk to the machine correctly.
Correct.
But this raises a massive, glaring question. If the free market is screaming that this specific skill set is worth 43% more to employers, why aren't universities rushing to teach it? Why isn't every college senior in the country graduating with a certification in token orchestration?
It is perhaps the most frustrating institutional paradox highlighted in the report. The universities, the very institutions that ostensibly exist to prepare human beings for the workforce, are largely fighting a rearguard action against the technology.
Which makes no sense.
Instead of redesigning curriculums around token orchestration, major universities are spending millions of dollars licensing AI detection software.
So they are actively trying to catch and punish students for using the exact tools that the corporate market is paying a 43% premium for. It's
It's
backwards.
entirely backwards. They are structurally trapped by legacy grading rubrics and tenure systems. The report notes that only 28% of professors even feel prepared to manage a classroom where AI is present.
Wow, 28%?
It is the equivalent of banning calculators in an advanced engineering program because the professor only knows how to grade slide rule math. The institutional gap isn't closing, it is widening.
Which brings this right to the doorstep of the listener, because if colleges are actively fighting this and, standard corporate training videos aren't enough to build real fluency, how do you actually cross that compounding gap?
That's the real question.
Right. How do you transition out of the everyone else tier and become an AI builder before your role just gets completely automated?
Well, first we have to look at why the current alternative learning platforms fail. If you go to Google's Gemini Badge program or LinkedIn Learning or Coursera, you are generally getting video-based modules.
Right. You watch a guy talk at a whiteboard.
Exactly. They offer passive familiarity. You watch a video about what an AI is, but passive observation does not build the immersive, pressure-tested competence required to manage a $250,000 token budget.
Going back to our earlier metaphor, you cannot learn how to manage a department of 100 hyperliteral interns by watching a 20-minute YouTube video about management theory.
No, of course not.
You have to actually assign them work, watch them fail, and learn how to correct them.
And that operational reality is exactly what EON AI Ventures analyzed when they built their global virtual campus.
Yes, specifically the Segment 18 curriculum in the report.
Right, segment 18. It basically functions as an analytical case study of what actually works in adult learning right now. They abandoned video lectures entirely and built a curriculum on 3 active delivery layers.
Let's break those layers down, because the first one is extended reality, or XR, immersive simulation. What does that actually look like for a learner?
It means you are dropped into a simulated, high-pressure business environment. You aren't just answering multiple-choice questions on a screen. You are placed in a virtual strategic planning session or given a massive corrupted database, and you have to actively use embedded AI agents to solve the problem in real time.
Okay, wow.
You are pressure testing your ability to orchestrate tokens under working conditions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a flight simulator for knowledge work. Now, the second layer is the brainy Socratic AI mentor, which I found absolutely fascinating. It's an AI tutor, but it refuses to just give you the answer.
Right, and that Socratic method is critical for building that 10% compounding advantage we discussed earlier.
How so?
If you give this mentor a lazy prompt, it doesn't just do a bad job and let you move on, it stops the workflow.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it asks you questions. It forces you to refine your logic, clarify your intent, and truly understand how the underlying model is interpreting your words. It actively coaches you out of your bad habits.
And then the third layer is the career compass. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how great your simulated flight was if you can't land a job.
Right, the practical application.
Exactly. The career compass maps the specific AI fluency you just demonstrated directly to local job openings. It shows you the live salary data, it shows you that 43% premium you are now objectively qualified for, and it bridges the gap between training and employment.
It bypasses the traditional university bottleneck entirely. And the really smart part is how they deploy this for governments or massive enterprises that need to transition their workforce. EON utilizes a model called impact share.
Oh, right. The 1% upfront model.
Yes, it requires only 1% upfront capital. This means a multinational corporation can deploy an entire operational AI fluency campus in 30 days without massive budget approvals.
That's incredibly fast.
It is. And a learner can go from enrollment to holding a verified AI builder credential in 90 days.
It has to be 90 days because, as we established with the Anthropic data, every single week you spend waiting for a 4-year university to update its syllabus is a week of compounding disadvantage in the real world.
The timeline is shrinking. Organizations and individuals simply do not have the luxury of waiting to see how this plays out anymore.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What is the fundamental takeaway for you listening to this deep dive right now? The era of being paid simply to show up with your human skills and your raw brain power is over.
It really
We have firmly crossed the threshold into the token economy. AI fluency is no longer a fun, optional, nice to have skill that you tack onto the bottom of your resume next to, like Microsoft Office.
No, definitely not.
It is the absolute non negotiable price of admission to the modern workforce. You are either an AI builder orchestrating agents to amplify your value, or you are directly competing against tokens that can do your job for fractions of a cent.
And if we connect all the dots we've discussed today, Nvidia's mandate, Meta's restructuring, the 43% salary premium, I would leave you with this final thought to mull over.
All right, lay it on us.
Imagine you walk into work tomorrow morning. Your boss sits you down and hands you a token budget equal to half of your annual salary. They look at you and say they expect a 10x amplification in your output by the end of the quarter.
Oh, man.
Do you know exactly how you would orchestrate those tokens?
Mm.
Do you have the fluency to deploy that capital? Or would that massive budget simply expose the fact that, despite the brand new machinery sitting in the field, you are still out there working with paper and pencil?
Wow. That is a heavy but entirely necessary question to ask yourself today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the token economy. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.